What is up, Earthnoids and Spacenoids? I am just a simple new type, and in this episode, we are returning to the world of Johnny Ridden. Last time, Led broke Uma Lightning out of the hospital. They plan on getting him to Jaburo. Uma talked to his contacts and got them a Jukan sub for their travels. PMC Themis and others are also making their way to Jaburo. This time, the team also makes their way to Jaburo as things kick off. Oxner and Gop meet, and Scott may have more pull within FSS than we were led to believe. So let's get into this. Jacobia sends in a Saberfish squad to take out the Gaplants and the Garuda. He looks on the radar and notices that the Garuda seems to be monitoring them as well. Amongst the Gaplant team is Yazan. They've been exhausted of fuel and need to return. This was PMC Themis' plan, to wait until they were low on fuel and make their move. The Saberfishies make their attack. We just see what Jacobia sees from the Garuda. Blips on the radar crashing with one another. On board the Jukan, they eat some soup suspended from the top of the hull. Things slide around on a sub. Military supplies are minimal these days for Zeon remnants, but they are able to get supplies from towns no problem. Even if citizens find out that they are Zeon, they genuinely don't care. Business is business. In this economy, Remia asks how they get money. The captain says that sympathizers lend them money. But it isn't Zeon. It comes from the Federation Navy. They wonder why. The captain believes that they are funded because they believe there is a need for them. Essentially, they are paying for their purpose. Or in French terms, their raison d'etre. Ew, French words. If the enemy disappears, the Federation Navy would most likely be disbanded. They are paying their enemy to keep them in the business of war. Things were good for the sea-bearing Zeon remnants until the Grips conflict started. The sea seemed to still be safe, but their land forces were obliterated during this time, and the sea can't function without the land. So this hurt them, but ultimately, they were still ignored by the Federation on the sea. This wasn't to maintain peace. The Federation simply believed Zeon remnants in the sea would die out if left alone. He says this will be their last mission. Uma begins going into a story about Johnny Ridden, and Led punches him and says that he is not Johnny Ridden. Remia suggests he stop punching random people. Meanwhile, Gop gifts Ingrid Zero the heavy Gundam. The FA-78-2 Heavy Gundam Unit 2 is equipped with the same armaments of the original Heavy Gundam. The core block system was gutted for Ingrid's unit and replaced with a biosensor. It has a shoulder-mounted beam cannon on its right shoulder. It also has a custom BOA beam rifle that is essentially the XBR-79, but with E-packs. Other weapons include a frame launcher, which includes a Gatling gun and a 4-tube missile launcher. It also has a folding shield and a custom bazooka. We saw the original Heavy Gundam used in Mobile Suit Gundam MSV Battle Chronicle Johnny Ridden. Go check out this story which follows Johnny Ridden during and after the war. Got mentions that they keep all of the remaining RX-78 line of Gundams in safekeeping. He also explains to Ingrid about them gutting the core block system and making room for the biosensor. He explains how Psychomu data is hard to parse, mainly because it is all dependent on the pilot. For example, he explains to her how the Psycho Gundam once attacked Hong Kong seeking out its owner. Ingrid thinks of the Gundam as being like a pet. Uma informs the team about the Sangre Azul and how it contains a device that tracks where Minaret currently is. He says that Minaret threatens the equilibrium of Universal Century. When asked why, he says that only Johnny would know. Ingrid calls herself Johnny Ridden and was the one that sent Led on this journey, so maybe she knows something. Uma and Ingrid are friends. Uma was one of the first to receive cyber new type enhancements, but so was Ingrid. However, during the 1-year war, they were all the same age, but she is still a kid. Uma thinks she was put into cold sleep. If she is making moves, then it means that Johnny Ridden has made a return. 2 more Jukan subs approach their location. They are allies, and they now have a fleet of subs to work with. Uma calls Johnny Led and tells him to be their leader. He is over this, but now Remia has given in and started calling him Mr. Crimson Lightning. Uma shows off his Gelgoog. We learned about this Gelgoog earlier in this series, but Uma casually drops the fact that it was made by Anaheim Electronics. Dude just casually gave away trade secrets. Led says he could only pilot Federation bubble suits, but he shows him inside the cockpit where the internals are all made of Federation parts. He already knew this. I think he's just trying to get out of piloting it. On the Garuda, Yazan is 3 hours out from Jaburo. Their objective is the Sangre Azul. Many of the space docks function as construction docks post 1-year war. They narrowed down the location to 3 docks, which they are calling Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. All Jukons are ready. They fire a barrage of surface-to-air missiles. Jacobia sends a Luggan to scout the area. Yazan is informed of the missiles as well. He doesn't change his plan and says that things don't go your way on the battlefield. Jukons sink to the bottom of the sea while the mobile suit team heads out. Like Dracer, the Zeon remnant captain seems to be shaking with excitement to return to the battle. Remia and Uma launch in an Akai, while Led launches in Uma's Gelgoog. As Minovsky particle density increases, Jacobia sends out the Saberfish squad and holds off on mobile suits. They need to get permission from their client, Oxner, if they could shoot down the Garuda. He says that it is unlikely. The ground team sets up camp. Like Yazan, they come to the conclusion that the Sangre Azul will be in one of these 3 locations. They plan on capturing it and then sending out a flare, getting the attention of Ingrid. They hear a loud noise outside as Minovsky particles increase. Saberfishies fly by. Ashwalia connects to the FSS database to confirm if they are coming from the Garuda. At FSS headquarters, Hoover is watching Ashwalia access the files. Meanwhile, Cristobal and Emma were supposed to meet with Jacobius, but he never made it to the meeting. They will hang out for a week in disguise to see what happens. They suggest meeting with a man named Scott. Yazan's Gaplants engage with the Saberfishies and some G armors. Themis sends out some Gem Quells on the ground and Zagok's in the water. Yazan is commanding his team gracefully as the veteran soldier he is. Jacobius notices that they are good. He tells his underling to take over and he heads out to make a call to Oxner. He wants to know if they could shoot down the Garuda. Oxner mentions that they are considered national property. Garudas have apparently become a part of transportation infrastructure for supplies and goods for the Federation. Then why are they still being used in war? He says then that the only other 2 options are destroying the Sangre Azul, which will destroy their chances of finding a minaret. The other option is to launch Sangre Azul unmanned. Oxner suggests sending it to Side 3. Jacobius wonders why not give it to Gop. He says the 2 would have different approaches to minaret and would most likely destroy it. Oxner ends his call and just so happens to be meeting with Gop. A sniper is camping outside of Led and the gang's camp. Their location allows them to camp out long term. Remy suggests that they just wait for the other forces to fight over the Sangre Azul, and then they jump in to take it. Uma will act as a vanguard. Remy decides to go with him to collect data. Meanwhile, Emma and Cristobal meet with Scott, who happens to be the same Scott that works at FSS. Scott, Emma, and Cristobal go out to eat. They have some small talk before Emma asks about Jacobius. We learn that Scott was actually a part of the Chimera Corps. He tells them that he is probably at Jaburo. Emma asks Scott if he knows about the Zabi's instrument of revenge. Gop and Oxner discuss policy changes. If Oxner becomes Prime Minister, he assumes that he is talking about increasing military budgets, but he tells him to forget about the military. He opens his windows to reveal a gaudy aquarium. His go-to business power move is to show off some fish. Weird flex. Gop tells him that this is a political fight. He wants to know his true intentions for Universal Century. In order for him to achieve his ideals, he thinks that he must take down Gop. This is Oxner's Mr. Smith Goes to Washington moment, where he realizes politics isn't a game. He tells Gop his truth for Universal Century. Jacobius breaks down what Gop's true objective is. Destroying Sangre Azul doesn't seem like the right move. Maybe they are after the coordinate computer that can track Minaret. He then realizes that they are planning the same thing they are. They are going to try to launch it into space. Uma and Remia find an access point to allow Ashwaria to connect to the Jaburo network. Uma mentions Asia, a woman that used to look after Ingrid and him and was Johnny's former lover. She asks what she is doing now. Uma tells her that she is dead. He and Ingrid were the one to kill her. They take off in awkward silence. When mobile suits rose to power, stealth was never really considered, since it was assumed there would be Minovsky particle disruption, so people would go in and scout the old-fashioned way. This would usually be accomplished with a plane, but Zeon thought to give the role to a mobile suit as well. The At Guy was particularly good at stealth. Stealth isn't about staying under the radar, since Minovsky particles are a thing. So what makes a mobile suit stealthy is visibility, and most importantly, audibility. Essentially, the At Guy wasn't loud when it snuck up on you. Also, Zeon's fluid pulse engine was quieter than the Federation's motor propulsion. The arms are what make the At Guy more fascinating. The arms have a locking mechanism, but can unlock to enable the elastic arms. Whether land or sea, the At Guy was a solid choice for infiltration, and why it was designed to break into Jaburo. Gaplants engage with the Gem Quells. Jacobius decides to go out with his Gelgoog cannon. Back at FSS, Scott gives Cristobal and Emma a Dom mermaid, as they are dedicated to going to Jaburo now. The The MS-09M Dom Mermaid is a modified Dom designed to operate over water. It is equipped with large stabilizer wings and 2 water jet engines on each ankle. Although it hovers over water, it is still considered an aquatic mobile suit. The Dom already has amazing boosters built into the feet. The additional twin engine makes this a speed beast and can glide across the oceans at great speeds. There is no data, but I assume this can equip all of the Dom's weapons, including the scattering beam cannon, a heat rod, and its mini bazookas. Scott says, oh, by the way, Johnny Ridden is at Jaburo as well. Oh, and Jacobius. Oh, and Uma and Ingrid. Remember, they are all former Chimera Corps members, with Cristobal, Emma, and Siemens supposedly being the only active members. He gives them a Medea to use as well. Scott has more pool than I thought. Cristobal is ready to repay his debt to Johnny Ridden. And that will do it for this episode. One thing to take away from this manga is that everyone has a unique past. Specifically, we get to see former Zeon members now working for the Federation come to terms with their former past. Even someone like Scott has a unique story. Next time, Oxner and Gop will continue their political dick slinging. The battle at Jaburo continues, and we will see what Millie Childer is up to as her and her comrades go through Anaheim Electronics' past. You remember Millie from Double Zeta? But that will do it for now, new types. Remember, sometimes you just have to embrace a name. Own it. Peace.